Okay. Hi, I am Alicia Piscatelli. I am a current PhD student in the Sustainable Engineering program at Villanova. And today I will be interviewing Arielle Benjamin, who is a 2013 graduate from the Master's in Sustainable Engineering at Villanova. And she has gone on to do a lot of things in her career, and she will tell us a little bit about that now.
Hey, good morning, or I don't know when everyone's watching this, but hi to everyone. My name is Arielle Benjamin, and I'm so honored to be here to talk about women's history and how that's impacted my journey and my life, both as a woman, as a Black woman, as a Latino woman, and as an engineer in society. After I left the sustainability program, I did work for a few years in industry as a project engineer in a chemical for the Dow Chemical Company, and then I went on to serve in the United States Peace Corps in Ecuador, and currently serve as an environmental engineer for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And I'm just really glad that I got my start, or rather my launch, into my career through Villanova. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Arielle. So moving on to our first question, what led you to choose engineering as a major?
Ooh, the big question. I did a summer program for 2 summers in high school at Carnegie Mellon University. And I remember doing a chemical engineering project with Dr. Klein, who still teaches there as a professor in their Department of Chemical Engineering. He's the one that inspired me because the project that we did. We literally created shaving cream from scratch. It's interesting because I reached out to him about 2 years ago when I was serving in the Peace Corps to let him know where I ended up, and he couldn't have been prouder. So I really firmly support exposing children and teenagers to STEM early on, because it really showed me what was possible with interest in math and science, and that is what has defined my career.
What was your undergraduate in? Was it in chemical?
So I received my undergraduate at Howard University in chemical engineering in 2010, and came on to Villanova in 2011 to start in the sustainable engineering program, which at the time has only been in existence for about 2 years, but I was really excited to be part of that, I guess, cutting edge at the time of research in that space. So.
Awesome. I'm actually also a chemical engineer. I have a background in chemical engineering.
Awesome.
It's nice to hear from you. Okay. So what is your current job?
So currently I work at the United States Environmental Protection Agency as an environmental engineer. I should say that my views expressed here are not representative of the US EPA or the federal government, but I am empowered in my role to utilize my math and science background, my understanding of environmental law as I'm reading through it, and to make analyses around the environmental impacts of projects that are happening in and around New York, New Jersey, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. So it's an exciting position. And in addition to that, I'm able to pull from my Peace Corps experience, because we are working on involving more communication and interaction with local communities in this region.
What is the most rewarding part of your job?
The most rewarding part of my career has been talking with community and local members of my community about the work that I'm able to do as an engineer that directly impacts their lives. Whether I was working at the Dow Chemical Company, where I helped with manufacturing of a compound that's used in everything from your car windshield to certain applications for biotechnology, to today where I am looking at environmental impacts in direct communities. I think it's just been a privilege to say that, although to be able to communicate that connection between the science and the lived environment, and say that I have an impact on the air that people breathe and the different things that they're able to consume because of my work as an engineer.
Oh, I'm really glad to hear that. That's something that I'm trying to do when I get out of this program, is to really impact people in a positive way. So I'm really happy to hear that from you. Okay.
Yeah.
What or who has helped you advance in your career?
My professors, Dr. Cannon, Dr. Farrakhan, were two of my professors in undergrad. Dr. Shawla, also at Howard University. They just really instilled in me the importance of taking what I know and doing something good with it, doing something long lasting, and being able to reach people's lives with technology. Dr. Farrakhan, in particular, he studied in India and then came to the US to teach. And he always connected what we were learning in the classroom with what was happening in society and around the world. And he was also our mentor for Engineers Without Borders. He's the reason why I ended up going to Brazil when I was an undergrad. He's the reason why I ended up at Villanova, because he was the first person that told me anything about sustainable engineering. You know, Dr. Cannon wrote my recommendation letters to get to Villanova. And at Villanova, I studied with Dr. Ortega and with his work and in heat transfer, and just being able to like find a space where I could be both a be involved in the social impacts of engineering work came through those people. And so I'm very honored to have met those people along my journey. And then I would be remiss if I didn't talk about my how would we call him? Technical advisor at the Dow Chemical Company, Scott Farmer. He taught me everything I needed to know about working in a chemical facility. And I have never forgotten the lessons that he showed me on the shop floor, how to work within the system, what it really means to be a chemical engineer, not just to stay in my office, but to get out in the field, and what the work that I was doing on the design end of things for the chemical plant meant for the actual process every day where people were working. And so that mattered to me, that everybody has a hand in the work that engineers design and do, and that we're all part of this, like, it sounds cheesy, but we really are all a part of this network of people who are changing lives.
I actually took a seminar with Dr. Ortega, and
I think
cool. He's a phenomenal professor. I agree.
Yes.
Okay. What challenges have you faced in your career, and how did you overcome them?
I would say learning to speak up for myself, learning assertiveness. I remember I went to a seminar when I was looking for graduate schools. I went to Georgia Tech, and they had a special, like, see what we do, which I'm sure Villanova has offered as well. And I remember in one of the sessions being encouraged to find assertiveness. So find that sweet spot. It's there. Maybe it's a sweet range. So you're not always going to get it right on the money, but there is a sweet range between not being passive, which I really believe that women are socialized into, and aggressive, which we can sometimes tend to lean towards, to think that that's the only way to operate. But in the middle, there's this nice range of assertiveness that allows you to speak up for yourself, to stand confident in what you know, but also to be kind to your counterparts, to those that you're working with at the table, to give everyone a voice, but to also give yourself a voice so that you are heard. I think that has been something that I've been challenged with. I wasn't good at it when I first got into the field. But over the years, I think I have really found who I am and who I'm supposed to be and what role I'm supposed to play in different rooms, and 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 stand in that and be proud of who I am and what I can bring to the table.
Awesome, thank you. Did being a woman in engineering present any challenges?
As I alluded before, definitely. We've all heard it. I don't know, maybe we all haven't heard it, but certainly coming into the career, there's this burgeoning term called the imposter syndrome. I don't know if you've heard of it. And it's interesting because now we're talking more about it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy where if you believe it exists, then you'll actually live into that. But I do feel like I was internalizing some sense of not belonging in a space. And I really had, if it wasn't for people like Scott Farmer, if it wasn't for people really showing me the ropes and telling me that I had the capabilities, if it wasn't for my current supervisor saying that he was competent in the work that I'm doing and the ways that I look at environmental reviews and environmental impact, like I would, like, I'm grateful for them for helping to give me that backbone that I needed, but eventually I had to learn to go and get it for myself too. So it is a challenge as a woman engineer because a lot of times we're still the only one in the room, especially as a Black woman, especially as a woman of Latina descent. And I think it never gets less awkward when people are looking at you and wondering, and you could see people like sizing you up, seeing if you really know what you're thinking. And instead of receiving that as I don't belong, receive that as an opportunity to thrive. Just say, okay, well, you can be uncomfortable with me being here, but I belong here, and soon we'll all figure out why. So I have something to bring to the table. My voice matters. My way of analyzing data, my way of being technically sound matters. And it might sound different, it might look different, it might have a different hairstyle, but it's still going to get the job done that needs to happen. So let's get to work, you know.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's really inspiring. It's something that I've definitely struggled with, and I'm sure I'll struggle with when I go into industry.
Call me anytime.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch. Okay, what is your most meaningful memory from your time at Villanova?
I would say my most meaningful time was helping to restart the chapter of the National Society of Black Engineers at Villanova. When I arrived, it wasn't very, very active. And I came from a very large chapter, with Howard being a historically Black college. NSBE was like the hub of student life in the engineering school. And so coming to Villanova, where there are not a lot of Black students, I really felt like, well, both SHIP, which is the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, both were not very active. And so what I did was I went and found, like, I got some freshmen together, and I went and found a few people who were involved in the undergraduate classes. And I said, hey, is this something that you want? Because if so, I could help you. And I was actually serving in regional leadership the year prior at Howard. So I knew a lot of people and had a lot of contacts within the National Society of Black Engineers, or NSBE as we call it. And I was able to solicit funds from Dr. Jones. He was able to help us, vouch for us, get us funding to just, I said, I just want to bring them to experience what the convention looks like. And from there we can build. And so that first year, I just like tried to, like, hey, you just got to see it for yourself. And so thankfully, Villanova, in the College of Engineering, they saw that this was something valuable worth investing in, and they got behind us, even though we didn't have many people. We rented vans. I drove from the conference was in Pittsburgh that year, and so we rented vans. I was one of the drivers. Drove them from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. I was like, here it is, everyone. Like, this is what, there are other people out there who are striving who look like us, who want us to excel in engineering. And from then on, they were hooked. 3 years later, they won Small Chapter of the Year. Like that was definitely the pride of my life at Villanova. And those group of people have such a strong place in my heart today.
Oh, wow. I'm really excited to hear that you were the person who really ignited that. I'm part of the Committee on Diversity and Inclusion, and we hear from the NSBE students, and yeah, it's providing a lot of value on campus still today.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So shout out to them. If you don't know who I am, just give me a call and just say you're part of NSBE, and I got you too.
Yeah. I'll be excited to tell them at the committee that I was speaking with you.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. Honestly, it says it's. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I just was like, just get in the room and please give us money so we can get them in there. And I'm just grateful that those doors are opened.
Yeah, I'm very thankful that you provided the opportunity for all of the students on campus, or for students on campus today. Yeah.
To reignite, because the chapter had been there, but it had
reignite,
yeah, so it was laying low for a little bit, but we were able to light that fire again, and so it's good to see that it's still burning.
Okay, thank you. Why did you choose a grad degree in sustainable engineering?
So I joined Engineers Without Borders in 2008 when I was still at Howard University, and we went on this trip to Salvador da Bahia in Brazil. And there we met, I remember, well, our project that we were working on was to help do consulting work to redevelop a community center that didn't have a roof, and they were looking to roof the place, so during rainy season it could be used as a gathering point. They had a computer center and other things, but they just needed engineering support and to finish the work. And so when we went down, we were just trying to come up with ways to do roofing for inexpensive, but also sustainably sound, because Dr. Farrakhan was the one who told us about appropriate technology, which was a big term at the time. And so we went to a university while we were there to speak to architecture students. And what we learned from those students was that while we were proposing to use bamboo as roofing because it's easy to replace, it's environmentally friendly, bamboo grows very rapidly. And I remember the main feedback we received was how culturally, though, bamboo is not looked as sound and secure, that brick and mortar in that community was sound and secure. So sustainability to me not only means designing for the future, but it also means understanding the culture, having a cultural competency to honor indigenous practices of the people who are from that location. We can't come in from the outside and say, this is how you become sustainable. It is the people who live there who are going to continue to keep these communities thriving. And so we can hand them many tools, we can teach them many different practices, but at the end of the day, it's going to be them that manage that long term. And so their voices need to be included in the full, I don't know if the World Business Council and Sustainable Development still use wedges, but if we're going to use those wedges, it's like one of those things has to be social inclusion of indigenous peoples to the work that we're doing in order to see long-term development. And so that has ignited like a whole like different world for me, because engineers, we're taught to just solve the problem as quick and as cheap as you possibly can. With sustainability, you're saying we're still going to solve the problem, but we're not going to solve it for today. We're going to think about how the problem can continue to be solved for years, generations to come. And so that changes the answer. That might change how, I mean, that might not change the answer, but it will change how we get to that answer. And it changes how you look at it, it changes how you interact with people. And it really has just informed the work that I do. I'm also on the board of a nonprofit called BioGal, and our whole vision is to empower girls and women of color to design engineering solutions for their communities on a local level. And the work that I started at Engineers Without Borders informs that, and informs the work that I did in the Peace Corps in Ecuador. Like everything that I am, it's all encompassing that we must learn how to work with one another to achieve global goals. So.
Right. Yeah, I've noticed that it's definitely a change in mindset of how we think about engineering as a whole.
Right.
Okay. Our last question. How did your time in the Peace Corps influence your career choices?
So I reached a point in my career industry where I really wanted to pivot the work that I was doing to tangible community involvement. Mm-hmm. And as I said earlier, like the best part of my job is being able to talk about how my job helps people. So I wanted to bridge that gap, bring that a little tighter, closer to the community. And so I left the chemical plant space in the manufacturing world and joined the Peace Corps. I said, well, if I'm gonna I might as well jump in the deep end, and I might as well just go swim and figure out if I can make it out here. The Peace Corps, thankfully you have the backing of the United States government, but you're put into a small community where your job is to interact. You have a counterpart. My counterpart was the Ministry of Public Health. And so daily I worked with the hospital staff, but I was out in the community every day, figuring out how to help address health needs for the community through logistical support with the hospital, as well as education around health and needs. And what that actually looked like when you don't have a budget. What does that look like when, how do you solve a problem when there is no money to be saved? Because there's no money to be had to begin with. And it really put me out there. And it was a wonderful experience. It informs my work today on the board of BioGals. It informs how I interact with the engineering designs that I look at today. And I'm now looking at it from what does this bridge or this highway mean for the air pollution of the family that has a house next to that overpass. I'm thinking about what will it mean when those changes occur, not just after the build, but during the build. What is that construction? What will the noise be for the person studying, working from home? It just added, being in the Peace Corps just added a holistic component to that I knew I needed, but didn't know how to access it, because there's not a lot of spaces to do that in the engineering field. Like you're either working in industry or you're not. And it's just I couldn't figure out a way to meld both. But now in my job, I'm able to do that. And it's because I was able to develop some of that mindset being out in Pajan in Ecuador and having to figure out how we're going to get clean water to the campo, how they're going to get access to medical care if it's rainy season and there are no motorbikes that can make it out there in the mud. How people are going to be able to take care of their bodies and be physically well if there is no gym, then you can't build one. And that is what has informed the work that I'm doing today. And yeah, even right now, with the pandemic, which will get a mention on anything that I say, I just had a bunch of calls this morning with Ecuador, with Pajan, because we're trying to put together a collective of different groups to bring rapid tests to the site, to the town, as well as information about COVID-19 to eliminate the stigma of the virus, because they have an outbreak going on right now as we speak. And even though it seems like we're coming out of it, there's still many countries around the world that are just starting to grapple with it, and they don't have the vaccine yet. So how can we as engineers come up with a solution to address that and respond to crises around the world? That's the question I feel like I'll be answering for the rest of my career / life. But I am grateful to be in this space. I really am.
Thank you. So the end of the there were questions that I was asked to ask you, but I'm really interested in hearing a little bit more about BioGirls, if you don't mind talking to me a little bit more about that. How did you find them? And how can you, I guess, how do you know that you're making an impact with it? It seems really exciting that you're creating these opportunities for other people, and it seems very impactful in their own communities.
Come on board. BioGals.
BioGals.
BIOGALS. BioGals.com. So we are a small nonprofit, grassroots. Like, my friend hit me up and said, "Hey, would you be interested in being part of this?" BioGals launched in 2019. I joined the team last February, right before the pandemic, and it came out of a research project. She was studying for her PhD at Arizona State, along with some colleagues, and they went down to Belize to do research, sustainable environmental research. They were converting food waste, and into cooking oil for the community. And so for 2 summers, they went down and they just worked with the local community. And what they found was the biggest thing that they did not expect was how surprised they were to have scientists that look like them supporting them, because there's still a phase that development is very white and very male. And so it was just a wow, like, okay, this is an area that we need to be in. This is the area that we can help empower girls and women in their careers to connect the work that they're doing in engineering with local communities, to let them know not only is help available, but you can do this too. Like, you can do this for your community as well. So we started in Belize. This past year, we had to ramp things down because of travel restrictions, but we were still able to raise funds to send 2 scholarships down to 2 students in that same town in Belize, to City River Village. And now we're looking to expand into some other communities, both locally and abroad. So that's our big push for 2021, 2022, and just really excited around the idea of getting into more places around the world, and just letting them know that there are young girls and women of color who understand that there are tangible needs that need engineering solutions behind it, and we're willing to get that done. Now, both the co-founders now have their PhDs, and one is a professor at University of Kentucky in civil and environmental engineering. So it's just watching the trajectory of our careers and how we're still able to give some part of that back into the world is very important. And last thing I'll say is we are actually sending out requests for proposals right now to give a small grant plus technical support to any project, any local small project in a community. So if there's any team at Villanova actually that wants to put in for it, it's $250, not crazy amounts, but we want to build small and just continue to, one family at a time, one community at a time, make a difference towards sustainable development.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna end the recording now.
Oh.
Is that okay? Or wait, unless do you have anything else that you'd like to say to the community?
My life has been a blessing. I would not be here today if it was not for the mercy and the goodness of God. And it is what leads me into what I am doing today. And I'm just really grateful for the journey that I'm on, that I'm able to be an engineer, that I'm able to be a woman, that I'm able to be a Black woman. And I just want everyone to be empowered in who they are, that you are fearfully and you are wonderfully made, and you have so much potential right where you are right now. And so just, do what you can with what you got, is what I encourage myself with. And I encourage that to anyone watching this today. So thank you and God bless.
Thank you.